across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good evening. It is Petrie here with you now for the next 3 hours. And coming up, of course, is the Talkback Hour at midnight, which is your chance to do exactly that. And with so much politics going on, we're going to stay with Keir Starmer. And I just wonder, because at this stage, I mean, I thought that he's got no choice but to resign. I would have done, because I don't like being that disliked, right? If I was that disliked, I'd just walk away. But he's clinging on. He's like a limpet. He's not going anywhere right now, is he? Until there is a proper leadership push, and that requires 81 people getting behind a candidate, a potential candidate. That's 20%. It used to be 10%, but it's 20% now they need of the body to get behind one person. Will they get that done? You can just tell all the horse trading that's going on at the moment in this back. It's just so unedifying, isn't it, the whole thing? But anyway, he's staying. What, in your view, would he need to do to save himself now as your Prime Minister? So that's what the question I'm going to be asking you at midnight. What could he do to save himself in your eyes? What policy change, what action, what words, what could he do to make you think, OK, we'll stick with him a little bit longer, because we might have to. So give me a call. I'd love to speak to you about that at midnight. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So those are the ways that you're going to get in touch with me, hopefully, about that. What does he need to do to save himself, in your view? Now, before that, we have the wonderful John Boothman joining us from Scotland, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. We're going to be talking about the Eurovision, because that has got so political now. It is can it survive even? And do we care? That's another question. But the Eurovision, a staple for 70 years, this has been going on, looks a bit on the dodgy side for the moment. We're also going to be checking up on Trump's trip to China. It is an incredibly important meeting that could set relations across the globe for many, many years to come. So let's not underestimate how important that is for the rest of us as well. But first, we are going to start with the politics of the day. Oh, my goodness me, there's certainly a lot of politics, isn't there, at the moment? I was watching this morning with all the fighting and shouting going on outside number 10. Whew. I mean, that was a pit, wasn't it? I don't know if you saw any of it. But anyway, everybody was shouting at everybody else to try and get attention, to try and find out what on earth was going on in that cabinet meeting. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Ryan Sabey, who is the deputy political editor at The Sun. Certainly not a boring couple of days, is it, Ryan?
No, it really has kicked off. And I think things were in motion really from last Thursday, when we had those disastrous electoral results for Labour. And ever since then, it looked like Sir Keir Starmer could possibly weather the storm. It was always going to be very, very difficult. But then on Sunday, Catherine West, the Labour MP, she challenged the Prime Minister, threatened to stand herself. But it really, I think over the last 24, 36 hours or so, we've had a whole host of Labour MPs who say they don't have confidence in the Prime Minister. They want him to set out a timetable, and that was ramped up slightly with ministerial resignations and the bag carriers, those ministerial aides for cabinet ministers. They walked away as well. And what's happened this morning, we thought there was going to possibly be Keir Starmer throwing in the towel and saying, that's it. A lot of the parliamentary party don't want him there. but he told his cabinet straight. There was the weekly regular meeting that the cabinet hold every Tuesday. And he said that there is no formal leadership challenge that has been triggered. And until that moment comes, he is staying put.
I mean, there's some kind of admiration for that, isn't there? I mean, because like I was saying, if I had so many people saying, "Look, it's time you left," I would be humiliated into accepting that was my fate, and I would try and get the best possible exit that I could get. It's extraordinary, either stubbornness or arrogance, or what is it, Ryan?
I think he realizes that he knows that 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, he got an absolutely stonking majority, 160, 170 seat MP majority in the House of Commons. And he has always talked about the project that he's on, this Labour project, as being a decade of national renewal. And he thinks he's only at the very, very start of this. But it was Boris Johnson who said, when the herd moves, it's time for you to get out of the way. When Boris Johnson was hit by cabinet resignations, it was those at the very, very top of his government. It was Rishi Sunak, it was Sajid Javid, and then it was the domino effect. So it came from the very, very top. Whereas if we look at this one, it's come from the bottom. Now, and I think one of the interesting things is, and I think for Keir Starmer to realise that the game was up, it would need his cabinet members to tell him that. Lots of rumours swirling around this afternoon that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, was thinking about it. It seems like at one point she may well have been on resignation watch. But actually, she's rode back from that, stepped back from the brink, and decided to get on with the job. So I think on this, there's no one at the very top of government who has told Sir Keir Starmer that he's actually got to go. Some may have told him that he may need to set out a timetable, but from those senior aides, those senior ministers who spend a lot of time with him, there hasn't been that big move or that big resignation. Now, one thing to tell you about what's going to happen in the morning: Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, is one of those contenders, is going to be meeting the Prime Minister. Now, it seems like this could be some kind of climb down from Wes Streeting. May have realised that he hasn't actually got the numbers, wants to talk through his issues, because the one thing about getting rid of political leaders is all about momentum. Now, it seems over the last 4, 5, 6 hours or so that sort of steady stream, that drumbeat of resignations has kind of dried up a bit. And I think Wes Streeting, perhaps, some people are very, very close to him. They resigned, but Wes Streeting didn't follow. Something's not quite right. Is it the case that Wes Streeting hasn't actually got the numbers?
That is exactly the way that I've been thinking as well. And really, genuinely, that Keir Starmer, if he can drag this out a little bit longer and weaken those people around him, he could well survive this. I don't know how he'll be able to lead, having survived it, and that is another issue. But he could very easily, we could still be talking about Keir Starmer being Prime Minister this time next week, and if we do that, then he's managed to cling on. But with Wes Streeting, because the rules were changed, weren't they, at the party conference? When was that? In 2021. It used to be that if you're going to mount a challenge, it would only be 10% that you would need. Now it's 20%, so that's 81 members. That is quite a number to try and get. Is there horse trading going on in the background? Are they all passing little notes to each other?
There's a lot of horse trading. There's lots of communication, whether it's on WhatsApp or telephone calls between people at the top of sort of these campaigns. But I get the impression that it's all very sort of uncoordinated. And I think one of the other things to bear in mind is that it's all very well, and before a contest is actually launched, saying that you've got a pledge from 150 MPs. I think when push comes to shove, and you've got to sign a piece of paper saying that you don't want the Prime Minister to be your party leader anymore, and you have to put your name alongside whether it's Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, or maybe Andy Burnham at some stage. I think that's a big thing for a politician to do, because if that candidate's leadership campaign fails, your campaign or your career as an MP if someone else gets in, it's pretty much over. So it's a big, big risk. And it might be that, Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner, they've looked at it and they've just realised that the numbers just aren't there, or those people who are willing to go over the top at the moment aren't there.
And that was the other question that I wanted to ask you, is what happens if he does survive to those 81 who've come out against him? What happens to all of that? The shenanigans that have been going on. We know that Keir Starmer, he's authoritarian in the way he manages. So is he likely just to go, right, you lot, you're done?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the case. I think he will look at it and say, there's a lot of people actually on what we call the payroll, those people who are government ministers, the trade envoys, people pointed to sort of special positions. At the last count, I saw there's about 170 of them. Plus, there was a letter of about 100 or so MPs. I think some of those will be double counted, but there's a group of 100 MPs who gave him his backing. So you do have this group of 80 or so, but he will still get his legislation through. There probably won't be all those 80 MPs who defy the whip every single time. So he will just about muddle through. Now, it's easy for the opposition. It's easy for Reform. It's easy for the Conservatives to pick holes in that. But, it took 18 months to get rid of Theresa May. It's very difficult to get rid of prime ministers. And I think we're seeing that in this case. So I think he will struggle on. I think he will have to try, and again, I don't know how many resets he's had, but he will have to try and just be a little bit more forceful. And I think one of the big things that he'll have to try and do is try and take the public with him. So if he does have to make big, difficult decisions on welfare or tax, that he needs to explain why he's doing it. Sometimes people don't mind when a prime minister makes decisions they don't like. But if it's explained to them and they are taken along with that, and they know that the end game or the result at the end of it is beneficial for the country, beneficial for them and their families, they may be a little bit more understanding. And I think that's one thing that he hasn't particularly done over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I know this from the phone-ins that I do, that people are just so fed up with being lied to and treated like children. We just want to be told what's going on and what the truth is. And sometimes that truth is, but we're adults, right? We can handle that. And the way that a lot of MPs and PMs have treated us in the past have belittled us and put us, just not explaining what's really going on. So I think you're absolutely right about that. The other complication, Ryan, and I feel quite embarrassed for the King about this, is the King's speech tomorrow. The timing literally couldn't be worse, right? The palace must be fuming that the King has got to stand up and say, my Prime Minister, and with all of this going on.
Yeah, I'm actually, when you look at the timing of this King's speech, it was meant to be a kind of sort of block to people standing against Sir Keir Starmer. So it was, I think the Labour, those people high up in the Labour Party knew that the local election results were going to be really bad. And the point of pulling the King's speech when they did, just a few days afterwards, well, there was going to be none of these shenanigans. But what we've seen people resign, and I think sort of Downing Street will be quite disappointed by that. But what I think we might see or not see tomorrow, I think we'll see some kind of truce. I'd be very, very surprised on the King's speech day when the King comes to Parliament and he has to read out his government wants to do, wants to carry out, 15, 20, 30 bills. This is what they want to do. I would be amazed if anything happens tomorrow. So in one way, it's benefited the Prime Minister because it's actually acted as some kind of roadblock to people. Actually, it's given him almost like a day's grace before anything happens again. So in that way, and as I said before about momentum in politics, a lot of politics is about momentum. If that is blocked or it stumbles or in any way, shape or form, Sir Keir Starmer is going to be able to get through the week. He then gets through another week when they're debating the King's speech, when there aren't that many MPs around, and then we're into a parliamentary recess for that half-term week at the end of May. Then he probably struggles on until the summer, and it's summer recess and nothing happens. Then he gets through to conference.
Exactly.
So there's always a way, or there's some sort of trickery that the government or those people high up can try and find a way of just getting through the week. And those weeks add up, and before you know it, you're into the autumn.
I mean, he's got the rind of a rhino, has the hide of a rhino. I mean, I just honestly, it's extraordinary. It's one thing, though, talking about Westminster and talking about the politicians and how they're playing this game, and they're playing it very cleverly. But what about the public? The people that you and I serve, right? What are they going to be thinking about this? What are your readers saying about Keir Starmer? I mean, the voting last week wasn't just a message to Keir Starmer; it was a message to the Labour government, right? I accept that; they should accept that. So, what are they going to think about this sort of tenacious way this man is hanging on in there?
I think what they want to do, they want to see him, they want to see the rest of his government get on with the priorities that they have. And that comes down to the cost of living, that comes down to immigration, and also comes down to sorting out the health service and the welfare system. And he really needs to get a grip on all those things, because he can keep buying himself time, but those are the sort of key priorities that our readers have. And I think one of the key things to point out on the cost of living is that we've obviously seen petrol prices go up. We've seen inflation go up slightly, but a lot of this pain is going to be delayed. I think, as you know, speaking to government people today, there could be, if this, crisis in the Middle East isn't sorted out very shortly, there well could be the military coming in to sort of ration petrol. There could well be flights, a lot more flights cancelled or postponed over the summer. And the cost of living, as the months go on, inflation gets higher, it gets really, really difficult. And the public and the voters will want answers from the government. So they'll have to act, but they'll have to try and do something really big that satisfies everyone. But the soundings that we're getting from government is that there might be some movement on fuel duty. There may be some support on energy bills, but that's going to be targeted and limited. So it seems like they're not going to please everyone throughout the whole of this year. But I think they need to get a grip on the cost of living crisis, because everyone's feeling it. You go to the supermarket, you do the weekly shop.
Absolutely, without question.
They're adding up.
Yeah. The other thing, just before I let you go, is Andy Burnham, right? You mentioned him a little earlier. He's not an MP. And there's talk about, I was reading some rumours today that they've already found him a seat and he could do that. Is that not a risk, though, Ryan? Is there, we saw in the last election that Andy, he wanted to stand in the by-election. That was by no means a certainty. Is there a safe seat now? Can they rely on that being a safe seat?
I think, a couple of years ago, Andy Burnham, even if a seat came up in the northwest, whether it's Manchester, he would have won. I think his name, his recognition, the work that he's done up in Manchester, he would have got over the line. And I think one of the complications is when you go into one of these electoral fights at the moment, you're not only facing one party, whether, before it was the Conservatives, you've now got Reform, you've now got the Greens. The vote is totally split. We're entering a time of five-party politics, and it's very, very difficult to predict. Now, Andy Burnham may be extremely popular if he stands up in the northwest, but the Labour Party is not popular, and that's one of the things that he's got to contend with. And when you do have a by-election, you will have the Reform Party throwing the kitchen sink at that seat. You'll have the Green Party doing the same. And when you've got an unpopular government, Andy Burnham's got to fight against that. And it's all about him and his own personal brand. It's also a massive risk. It
is a huge risk for them, isn't it? And this, the whole idea that if Starmer sets a timetable to leave so they can shoehorn Andy Burnham in, I'm just like, well, that's a risk. That might not happen, right?
Yeah, no, it's going to be difficult. One, he's got to find the seat. He's got to find it. There are rumours that someone is prepared to stand down. Whether that happens or not, we'll see in the next few days. But it's a long process as well.
Yeah.
So someone has to resign. There has to be a by-election. He's then got to come back to Parliament. And then does he trigger a leadership election straight away once he's back? There is a lot of unanswered questions here, and there's no guarantee that he's got a safe route back to Westminster.
And does he have to resign as mayor before he stands as an MP?
Well, this is the big question. This is what happened last time when he tried to stand in that Manchester seat, that actually he'd have to stand down as the Manchester mayor. The Labour's ruling executive committee didn't want him to do that because they felt that the Reform Party would win that Manchester mayoral seat. So he'd have to stand down, and then he'd have to get the backing of the National Executive Committee to actually put his name forward. So there's a lot of hurdles for him to overcome before he even thinks about getting a seat.
I mean, it just seems like such an unholy mess with all of these. And David Lammy today saying, just take a breath. Do you think people are just going to just go, OK, we tried, we failed, we've got to back him now? Are they just going to move on?
I think the next sort of 48 hours will be quite crucial, actually. It does feel like the momentum has gone out of all those people resigning. There's only so many people who are going to, put their head above the parapet on this at the moment. It needs a big name. It needs several big names for people to go in and tell the Prime Minister or even resign to make their point. So if you can get through this week, I think that'll be seen as a big success. I was speaking to government aides tonight, and they really feel like this is fizzling out a little bit. So they're in a slightly better position than they were at the beginning of the week, and even this morning when it felt like the cabinet ministers could go in at that cabinet meeting and actually tell Keir Starmer that your time is up. But at the moment, he fights on.
I mean, honestly, if I was a betting woman, I don't even know which way I'd go. I'd probably bet that he'll stay. Isn't it? It's wonderful to speak to you, Ryan, as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Ryan Sabey there, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. I think he's going to cling on. I just genuinely do. What do you make of all of that? Anyway, got to take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And midnight, of course, it is your chance to have your say, to talk back. And I'm just intrigued by this move by Keir Starmer. I thought that he would have to resign today, or at least set out a timetable for him to leave. I really did, because of that, the levels of people telling him to go. But no. So I wonder, do you see this as stubbornness or strength? Because I think he thinks we would see it as strength, that he's going to hang on in there, that he doesn't want the country to be in chaos at this particular time. And look, he's got a point. I think this is a terrible time because of what's going on in the world stage to mount any sort of challenge. But then, is he the right man to see us through that? It's difficult to say, isn't it? But is this stubbornness or is this strength? Hanging on in there despite the numbers of people. It's nearly 90 now. I'm just looking for on the screen. It's nearly 90 Labour MPs call for the Prime Minister to resign. But nobody's set that leadership challenge in motion. It doesn't appear that any one of them has got enough people behind them in order to mount that challenge. The way Labour do it and the way that the Tories did it is very different. So this is the way that Labour do it. It's very difficult to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister, and it looks like it is this time as well. So none of them appear to have the numbers that they need to be able to mount that challenge. And this is what Keir Starmer is saying, either put up or shut up. Let's just get on with the job, unless you can get enough people behind one of you to mount that challenge, to go away. I'm not leaving. So I wonder, as I was saying to Ryan there, about how you feel about that. We know about Westminster shenanigans and the mess that's going on there and what's happening. But you sent Keir Starmer a message last week. You did, with your votes that you cast. So how do you feel about him hanging on? And what does he need to do now, in your view, to save himself? What one thing or couple of things, couple of policies would, in your mind, save him? It would save the Labour government. What actions would he have to take? What policies would he have to come up with and actually stick to? Really back them up. Let me know, and just how you feel about this. I mean, honestly, it's like cats in a sack, isn't it? Just scrapping each other. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Right now on Talk, it's Petrie, and I'm with you until 1 o'clock. Coming up at the top of the hour, don't forget, it's John Boothman will be joining us from Scotland to go through the papers. In the meantime, US President Donald Trump has been flying to China today for a landmark two-day summit with President Xi Jinping from tomorrow. His first state visit to the capital in nearly a decade. They met, if you remember, last year. I think it was in South Korea last year. But it's first time to China. Trump is expected to bring a host of top business and technology industry executives, including Apple's Tim Cook and Elon Musk, as well as other executives from Meta, Visa, Boeing and JP Morgan. The high-stakes dialogue aims to solidify an incredibly fragile trade truce, both leaders seeking to protect stability despite a deepening technological and geopolitical divide. On the agenda, of course, will be the Strait of Hormuz, which, although China is well insulated against the oil that comes from there because they've got such huge reserves and they've got lots of different alternative energy sources, they can't afford for the rest of us to be broke. That's the truth of it. So if every other country in the world is broke, we're not going to be buying as much from China. So will Donald Trump have to ask Xi Jinping for help and in sorting out the Strait of Hormuz? And that will be awkward for Donald Trump, wouldn't it? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Robert S. Ross, who's a professor of political science and associate at the Fairbanks Center for Chinese Studies at Harvard University. It's good to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I want to be a fly on the wall. I don't know about you, because there is so much that Trump needs from Xi, isn't there?
It's a very long agenda. For a summit meeting between two leaders, we have rare earths, we have Taiwan, we have investments in each other's countries, we have Boeing, we have soybeans. The Chinese want continued supplies of parts for their domestic aircraft. How they juggle these different issues, where the quid pro quos are, where the trade-offs are, we just can't begin to understand. But it's a very complex agenda. I
mean, the trump card that Xi has is the rare earth materials, isn't it? But Donald Trump has got the semiconductors, so you can see some kind of deal being done with those two things.
So on the rare earth versus semiconductors, I think there's a meeting of the minds here that at the highest levels of technology, we're not going to supply technology that the PLA can use for their own military capabilities. And the Chinese are going to strain rare earth exports that can help the American Pentagon. Beneath that, there's a lot of room for play. Whereas the Obama administration was trying to cut off all technology so as to undermine Chinese technology industries, Donald Trump seems ready to cut a deal. We can loosen our restrictions on technology, but we want something in return. What it is, we're not quite sure. How this gets carried out, how it gets verified, we don't know. But there is the making of a deal.
Well, China holds 90% of the world's rare earth materials. So in a sense, they've got their own Strait of Hormuz, haven't they? They can switch that on and off.
They do very much.
Yeah.
But of course, there's much the Chinese want from the United States. They'd like a statement on Taiwan. They'd like access to American technology. They like to reduce tariffs, right? So the fentanyl issue is still out there. So the Chinese would like a lot from the United States to be able to increase their exports. The Chinese want to invest in the United States. Donald Trump's entourage to China shows clearly he wants American investments in China and for Chinese to ease the restrictions. So again, investments in whose country? Americans in China, Chinese in America. There are a lot of deals to be made.
Isn't it slightly awkward, though, at the moment, when what happened with Venezuela? China didn't get involved, but they were heavily invested in Venezuela, and Donald Trump has just crushed that investment, basically. And now we've got Iran, where China is a friend of Iran and a supporter of Iran and has been allegedly arming and helping Iran to attack countries in the Middle East. That's awkward, isn't it, when Donald Trump is trying to stop what's going on with Iran or to weaken Iran further when China is strengthening them?
No, I think awkward is the right word. The Chinese stake in Venezuela is not very great. The Chinese stake in Iran is not very great. As you said, they are friends, but hardly strategic partners. The Chinese are focused on East Asia. That's what they care about. They care about Taiwan. They care about trade. They care about their economy. And if the right deal can be struck, Chinese can be helpful. They can play the peacemaker in the Strait of Hormuz. They'd love to have that high-profile position. So cooperation is possible, and Donald Trump might be able to get some cooperation in Iran. On the other hand, the Trump administration has made clear that Iran is not a deal breaker. They still want to go into Beijing. They still want agreements. And if they can't reach agreement on Chinese pressure on Iran, that's okay. Trump's prepared to move ahead.
I mean, that in itself I find extraordinary. It's the same as he has that relationship with Russia and Russia supplying intelligence, and yet he's not berated Putin once for helping Iran target American bases, for example. I just can't get my head around Donald Trump's thinking on either of these issues.
Well, I think Donald Trump's perspective on world affairs is the great powers cooperate to manage the world, and conflict between the great powers is counterproductive. So if you think about the Chinese, we do see the makings of a G2 rather than a escalated conflict. Regarding Russia, I think he sees Ukraine as an obstacle to U.S.-Russia cooperation, to stability in Europe. So small countries can take a side seat for Donald Trump if he can negotiate big agreements. And I think that's the case with China. It might be the case over Taiwan. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that is the point that I wanted to come to. We know that Xi has, it's in the Constitution, it's an imperative that China return Taiwan to its control. Before now, there has been an implied support from the US and China hasn't tried to attack Taiwan because it feared that. What language change is Xi looking for? Because at the moment, it's a bit wishy-washy from America. Does he want a cast iron guarantee? And I don't think Trump would step in to help because he doesn't see it as any of his business. But that America would not get involved if China were to move on Taiwan?
Well, I think there is some room for play here. I think just yesterday, the administration announced a new arms sales deal for Taiwan. And it's hard to imagine that Xi Jinping would welcome Donald Trump to Beijing right after a new arms sales to Taiwan. Yeah. So perhaps there's a quid pro quo out there. Now, what does China want? I don't think it's possible to expect the United States to end arms sales to Taiwan. That's not going to happen. And we're not going to commit to not intervening. As you say, that's not going to happen. But the language the United States can use, such as do we support or do we oppose independence? Do we not support independence? Do we look forward to unification? These, in some respects, are diplomatic language, but that can go a long way to appeasing Chinese interests. Now, in the past, of course, the United States had a very clear policy. We do not support Taiwan independence. The Biden administration was relatively ambiguous on that. Donald Trump hasn't talked about it, but it shouldn't be hard to go back to that language while simultaneously maintaining America's defense cooperation or arms sales with Taiwan.
Is it difficult for Donald Trump and the American government to suggest that China should leave Taiwan alone, or that they would come to its defense because of what they're planning with Cuba, what we've seen already with Venezuela, that they seem to be wanting to sort of mop up countries in their hemisphere, and therefore Trump will say it's okay for you to mop up countries in your hemisphere?
Well, I think the Chinese understand very well the difficulties of an occupation of Taiwan. It might not be easy. Just look at the United States and Afghanistan, look at Ukraine, look at Iraq, look at the difficulties on Iran. And so they have a long game here. The effort is to gradually continue to rise, leave Taiwan little choice but to accommodate Chinese interests as the American commitment declines, as the risk of war grows and the risk of American casualties grow in a war with China over Taiwan. So the Chinese really don't have a game plan for immediate use of force against Taiwan. They can be patient. And I think the CIA has said this, the military has said this, the U.S. Department of Defense. And so I think Donald Trump feels somewhat confident that he can make concessions without eliciting Chinese use of force and occupation of Taiwan.
So with this relationship, as unsettled as it has been, is important, isn't it? It's important to the world that these two countries do find some deals that can be made. Are you expecting that it will be less than Donald Trump would hope for the next
Well, I
2
do
days?
agree with you that some stabilization of this relationship is critical. Escalation of the trade war could spread around the world and we could have global protectionism. And as you said, that's not in China's interest, nor is it in America's interest. And so both sides understand that escalating protectionism would be counterproductive, and they would like to try a way to stabilize it. That should not be difficult. We call this a fragile truce, but I think both sides want to try and reduce that trade friction during this summit, and that will go a long way forward to stabilizing the long-term relationship.
Talking of their relationship, of course, Donald Trump says that he gets on very well with Xi, that they're, great pals, all of that. From what I've been reading about what the Chinese think of Donald Trump, it is potentially not reciprocated.
Well, first, I don't think Xi Jinping makes negotiations and makes deals because of a warm relationship with his counterpart. He's a hard-nosed negotiator who's risen to the top of the Chinese Communist Party by playing hardball, not by being friends with people. So I think that's the first step. The second is he feels he's got a lot of leverage, and he's prepared to use that leverage. Our economy is in trouble, as is China's economy, but the Americans won. We have a rising inflation. We have rising unemployment. It's a problem. And the Chinese have the rare earths, as you were saying, as negotiating leverage. Donald Trump is declining in the polls. The war in Iran is not going well. And Xi Jinping seems to be expanding his influence, expanding his military. His economy is growing. So Donald Trump indeed is going to Beijing with a weak hand, which Xi Jinping is prepared to exploit.
And then finally, on the Strait of Hormuz, as I was saying at the beginning, the reason China would be upset about this is because the poorer we are, the less we're going to buy from China. They're fairly well insulated at the moment. Could Xi have a strong word or two with Donald Trump? Could it be that sort of relationship where Xi will stand up to Donald Trump and say, look, what you've done is you've created a right mess here, mate?
Well, Xi Jinping has said to both sides, to Iran and the United States, that the straits should be open to shipping for all countries. And so, again, we have a peacekeeper here, and the ability of the Chinese will say, we are prepared to put some pressure on Iran, but what are you going to do yourself to relieve the pressure on other countries and Iran as well? And, of course, everything is tied to Taiwan. You want to help on Iran, you want to help on North Korea, you want to help on Russia and Ukraine. Let's talk about Taiwan.
Indeed, I think it will all come back to that. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant to talk to you. Robert S. Ross there, Professor of Political Science and Associate at the Fairbanks Centre for Chinese Studies at Harvard University. Quick break and then we're talking politics of the musical kind.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie. And coming up at the top of the hour is the wonderful John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. And he'll be joining us to go through the papers, which will be filled with more about Keir Starmer. So, and that, of course, is what we're going to be talking about at midnight. What can he do to save himself? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Well, on to politics of a different kind. This year's Eurovision Song Contest kicked off tonight in Vienna with the first part of its semi-final. But this year's competition is facing significant political tension. 5 countries, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Iceland and Ireland, have withdrawn from the competition in protest of Israel's inclusion amid the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Well, Ireland's national broadcaster RTE will replace its broadcast of the final on Saturday with a classic episode of the comedy Father Ted entitled A Song for Europe. I don't know if you remember that episode. Absolutely brilliant. The boycott gained momentum following a European Broadcasting Union General Assembly where new rules were discussed after concerns arose over significant public votes received by Israel in last year's contest, and that was the involvement of the Israeli government putting out messages about voting for Israel. So, joining me to discuss this is Adrian Bradley, Eurovision journalist in Vienna. Nice to meet you. This was meant to be the FA Cup of music, wasn't it? That politics weren't involved, but they have increasingly become so.
Yeah, I think if you speak to the organisers, if you speak to the EBU and the people running the contest, they will always talk very strongly about how they want this not to be a political contest. However, I think it always has been political in lots of different ways. And I think it's very hard to kind of separate that in a lot of ways. I mean, if you go back to 2016 and Ukraine's victory in Sweden, in Stockholm, and that was very much in a backdrop of what was going on then in the Crimea with Russia and Ukraine as well. So politics has constantly been a backdrop at Eurovision.
I mean, on nul point after Brexit, for example.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would say less than it, because after Brexit, you've got Sam Ryder, who came second and did incredibly well. More likely, when it comes to the UK, it's less about politics and more about they're waiting for us to put in a good song and then they vote for us. With other countries, I think, politics does play a part, but in lots of different ways. And yeah, it's very noticeable, the 5 countries that aren't here. Spain were one of the big 5, one of the big contributors to Eurovision. The Spanish fan contingent were normally one of the biggest groups of fans at Eurovision when I go to them every year. So them not being here is very noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other point, isn't it? That 3 of the countries that backed out of this year in protest were financial contributors to Eurovision, and a lot of countries now having to really think about A, hosting, which is expensive, but B, even taking part in this, because there's a credit crunch on, right? And a lot of people are looking at the costs of Eurovision and just saying, is it worth it?
It's a very difficult situation for a lot of broadcasters. I mean, a lot of other broadcasters, I mean, if you take the BBC, they will say that it's actually a bargain. If you look at the viewing figures for Eurovision on the BBC, it's huge, like as a Saturday night. And actually, it works out as a relatively cheap 2 or 3 hours of TV for that sort of viewing figures. But it does differ from country to country. We've had 3 returning countries this year: Romania and Bulgaria and Serbia have come back to the contest. So they have kind of balanced out on some sides some of the countries that they've lost. But Spain and the Netherlands, huge contributors to Eurovision, and they will be wanting to try and get at least one or two of them back at some point.
And how do you think the Israeli entry will be met by crowds? Because it is one thing for countries to pull out in protest, but it's also another for whoever it is for Israel, listening to what could be some negative reaction from the audience. Is it likely to happen?
I will say they performed in tonight's semi-final, and obviously they've been a number of live shows with them in tonight. I think the atmosphere was definitely a lot less tense than it has been over the last couple of years. There was likely some reaction from a crowd and some noise from a crowd, but certainly not at the level that maybe we saw in Malmö and in Basel. I think Austria is a very different country, very different political culture here, perhaps to some of the other countries where it's been hosted. So that probably has come across. So no, that I haven't seen that. Certainly I haven't seen like the level of protest outside or anything like that we saw in Malmö and we saw to an extent in Basel.
There's expected protests, aren't there, on the Saturday, I believe?
I think potentially, and Austria, I think very much prides itself on free speech. One of the things that it's done as well is every flag is available to be bought and waved at Eurovision. So there's no ban on any flag, and except that they have to be fire safe after what happened in Switzerland this winter. So they're all being sold. You have to pre-order them, and they will provide you the flag here. But every flag from around the world. So there will likely be Palestinian flags, there will likely be rainbow flags, there'll be European flags, there'll be all sorts of flags in the audience on Saturday night. Austria have made a big point that they believe in free speech, and I think that will come to protest. But like I say, actually, when it comes to in the arena, the people in the arena are here because they want to see the contest. I haven't heard lots of booing. I haven't heard lots of shouts and lots of protests. So we'll see what happens on Saturday night.
And Eurovision is expanding into Asia.
It is.
I mean, I've always questioned why Australia was in the Eurovision Song Contest anyway, but why Asia?
Well, so this is a completely separate program and contest called Eurovision Asia. There are at least 10 countries taking part in that. That's going to be in November in Bangkok. I'd very much like to go if I
Shouldn't
can
it be
find a way of getting there.
Asia Vision, not Eurovision.
Well, that is a very good point, but I think the EBU are very keen on their trademark of Eurovision, and they want that to be the branding that goes around the world. But it is, a few people have pointed out that Asia Vision would make more sense. But it is, they're very excited about it. You've got South Korea, you've got Thailand taking part. You know, big forces in pop music and Asia pop music as well. So it could be a really interesting show.
I mean, Asian pop music is incredibly popular at the moment, isn't it? So it really is with all around the world. What about our entry this year? 80-1 to win. That's the latest odds.
I would say that those are probably fair odds. I'm not expecting a UK. I'm not expecting a UK win on Saturday night. It's quite a Marmite song, which is kind of what you need to do at Eurovision. I think often we'll put in something that nobody has any problem with, but you're not going to pick up the phone to vote. If somebody loves it, they'll pick up the phone to vote. If somebody just thinks it's all right, they won't. And this is what they've kind of gone to. He himself is brilliant. He's an inventor. He's actually built the set. A lot of the set he's built himself, his own inventions. He creates his own synthesizers. He's a really remarkable person. And he's actually quite big in Austria and Germany, tours around here, and he's quite well known around here. So let's see how he does. His first performance, we'll see him on Thursday night, and the big one where he's up for competition is Saturday night. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, look, Mum, no computer. And because we are a huge financial contributor, he makes it all the way to Saturday.
He does indeed. He gets a guaranteed spot.
He gets a guaranteed spot. 70 years now that Eurovision has been going on. It's an extraordinarily long run. Is it going to continue? Because the more political it gets, perhaps the more watered down it gets. Are we going to see people start to withdraw, especially with the costs at the moment?
We've had periods like this in Eurovision history before. And it's important to remember it's still the biggest television, non-sporting television show there is in the world. I mean, Super Bowl, Olympics and things like that will beat it. But after that, it's Eurovision. You're talking of hundreds of millions of people that watch it on a Saturday night. It's still hugely popular. There's still so many people on Saturday night that will be having their Eurovision parties, that will be watching it. And it changes and it develops, but so many artists like Maneskin in recent years, like Sam Ryder, and his success now is because of Eurovision. Back to people like ABBA as well, and even Celine Dion. We have Eurovision to thank for Celine Dion. So I think there's still life in it. Yeah, I think it is going through a difficult time, and it will be interesting to see how it navigates this year and the next couple of years.
And how many years have you been covering it now?
The first Eurovision I went to was in 2013. The first Eurovision I worked on covering was 2016. So 10 years for me now. And it's great for me. As somebody described it as like it's a holiday lottery generator each year for me. It's like, where am I going to go next year? I don't know. Could I be in Finland? Which would be very nice next year. And I find out on a Saturday evening in May where I'm going to be the following year, which is quite nice. First time in Austria. I've never been, so I've ticked another country off.
Another country off. Who do you think is going to win it?
Finland are the favourites in the betting odds, and that's Linda and Pete, which I think are great names for an artist. Really interesting. Linda is a virtuoso violinist and is performing live, which normally you're not allowed to perform instruments live on stage. Normally the instruments are on backing tracks. She has got permission because it is artistically relevant to the song. And she is a superb violinist. It's a really good song, really impressive staging. They're the favourites. The other ones to watch, I think, are France and Greece. Greece is really interesting. France is a young opera singer. Greece is a slightly more hyper-pop dance track that's very interesting. So there's some great stuff to watch on Saturday night. Finland are the hot favourites, but there's not much value in them.
Yeah, no.
At the moment,
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you going to Finland next year, since that's where you want to go. That's where I'm going to back that one. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Adrian Bradley there, who is a Eurovision journalist in Vienna. That's it for this hour. I am back, though, with John Boothman on the other side.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Petrie, and with you until 1 o'clock. And of course, coming up at midnight, it is your chance to have your say and your chance to talk back. And we have to talk about Keir Starmer. I'm surprised. I'd be amazed if somebody hasn't done an image of him as a Klingon on the front page of. Maybe it's the Star. I haven't looked yet, but that's what I would have done today. If I was the Star, I'd have envisaged him as a Klingon, because that's exactly what he's doing, isn't it? He's clinging on to the seat of power. I'll get to the Star at some point. But he's clinging on to his position as Prime Minister. I wonder how you feel about that. Because I would have put money on that he would have resigned today, because I'm thin-skinned about things like that, and he clearly has the hide of a rhino. So he is saying that he's staying put, that until there's a proper leadership challenge, which there so far hasn't been, he's staying where he is, and he's not going to timetable an exit. He seems to have got the higher-ups in his cabinet on his side. We've seen 4 resignations, but they're fairly minor, they're fairly low down, so they're not really taking that very seriously. And over 90 people now, MPs now, calling for him to step down. But as Ryan Saby was saying earlier on, the momentum does seem to be running out of steam. So if he can just struggle through, he's got the King's Speech coming up tomorrow, so there's unlikely to be any embarrassment for the King, right? So the people will probably be quite quiet tomorrow about this, so that the King's not embarrassed. The King then goes into Parliament and delivers his government's plans for the next 18 months, which in itself is a little bit embarrassing, since they don't know who their leader's going to be in 18 days, let alone 18 months. But anyway, that could act as a bit of a pause or a break for Keir Starmer. And then he's just got to limp through till, you know, the end of the week. That'd be easy for him to manage that. And then there's the half terms, and then there's a few more weeks, and then there's summer recess. So he could actually just hang on in there. But is it in anybody's interest for him to do that? Is it really going to help the Labour government? Is it going to help you? Is it going to help? I mean, a leadership contest would be annoying and would freeze government action for quite some time. But what do you make of Keir Starmer very clearly dismissing your message from last week, the way that you voted last week? You must have wanted to see some form of this happening to get rid of Keir Starmer. And how do you feel about him kind of ignoring that, pushing against that, and just saying, no, I know better. I'm going to do what I think is right, and I'm going to stay put. Extraordinary scenes today, genuinely, really extraordinary, and the messaging that's coming out is also bizarre. So very odd times in politics, not for the first time in this country, and also not that long ago, but still, nonetheless, another treat for us all. So in your view, what would Keir Starmer have to do to win you back? Because it looks like we might be stuck with him. He's honestly, he is sticking on in there. I don't know how they're going to, are going to prize him off the side there, but looks like he's going to stay. And he could. So what does he have to do then to win you back? What policy, what words, what action, what one thing would he have to do to regain your trust? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Who are joining me now to discuss these extraordinary times and to look at the newspapers is the political correspondent for the Sunday Times in Scotland, the wonderful John Boothman. John, I want to have a lie down after the last couple of days. I don't know about you. I mean, you must be busy on the old laptop or typewriter, I imagine you still use.
Yeah. Look, it's been pretty busy. I mean, it's just what a complete and utter shambles.
I know.
I mean, you've got a parliamentary Labour Party where 90 or so, we are told now, of people want to go or to set a timetable to go. We've got 113 or something on the other side who say he's got to stay. And then I think they've got 403 altogether. So nearly 200 in the middle who are betwixt and between, and we don't really know yet what they think. We've got 4 potential candidates for the election, each with something hanging over their head, which hasn't allowed them to pull the trigger to stand. Maybe there's a bit of that, what is it? Whoever wields the knife doesn't get the crown kind of thing going on. You go through them. West Streeton's not kind of really, we don't think, got enough support because he's too right-wing within the Labour Party to get that. Angela Rayner's still got that tax problem hanging over her. Ed Miliband, we're kind of not really sure whether he would be interested in it or not, or maybe fancies being the Chancellor or something. And then Andy Burnham, who appears to be everybody's favourite, but, well, not everybody, but a lot of people's favourite. He certainly is more favoured than the rest in the polls. And he's not eligible to stand for it because he ain't an MP. So it's just one of these bizarre situations, which, as you rightly say, almost by default, that Starmer might just end up sticking it out. And I keep listening to people, you yourself, for example, a minute ago, saying, what does he need to do to win back your support? To which there is a very simple one-word answer, which is probably resign.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But are people... You see, I think that the Prime Minister is so out of touch that he thinks we see this as strength. But actually, I think what we see it as is stubbornness.
Yeah, but, why are we here, right? So he was elected, actually... We talk all the time that he was elected in July 2024 with a landslide majority. That may be the case in terms of the House of Commons, but it's not the case in terms of the share of the vote that he got in the country. He came in with this great agenda for change, and as soon as he got in the door, we discovered very quickly that he had no plan. They had no direction of travel. They immediately, and how many times have we talked about that, did the winter fuel payment thing. There was the thing about the specs and the suits, and it just continued all the way through until we got to a period when he had to start U-turning and things. And I keep hearing, I think 16 U-turns is the number that I've been hearing again tonight. And then they get to last week, and it was entirely predictable. They lose 25. I think they dropped 25 points in their general election showing in England and in Wales. They lose in Scotland. When Anna Sarwar a year and a half ago, certainly people would have thought had a real chance of being the First Minister. And that's all of these things, right? If you're a member of the Labour Party, are just like hugely dispiriting. He doesn't cover it because you've lost, hundreds and hundreds of activists who have been councillors, right? In Scotland, they've lost some MSPs. In Wales, they've had the worst result ever. And it was entirely predictable that we would get to the last couple of days, but there he is. He's sticking it out. He's clinging on by his fingernails, and somehow or other, he might just make it. And if anybody thinks that who's in the Labour Party, that's actually satisfactory in terms of, turning the country around, turning the Labour Party's support around, I just can't see it. I mean, I don't think we're sitting here at the moment saying, will he make it to the end of the week? I mean, the idea that he's going to make it to 2029 and fight the next election and win it is beyond comprehension.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I would have put money on the pressure being so great that he would have, any normal human being would have resigned today, or at least set a timetable to leave. But he is much more stubborn and tenacious than I gave him credit for. I mean, this is beyond, isn't it? Is it arrogance? What is going on here?
Well, politicians live in a bubble, I think. Yeah. And they can be tone deaf, and they can think, if they've got a belief in themselves, that they can get themselves and the country out of a mess, that this is, the midterm, this is what happens to all governments in these kind of situations, and you can recover. This just seems beyond that. We look, I think there's just been some really interesting stuff around in the papers today about how bad in this country compared to others that we just post-COVID haven't been able to get ourselves out of the bit, haven't been able to really make significant improvements, and not just in the way that politicians have been, carrying out their functions and responsibilities, but just, generally there's a huge malaise in the country. And somehow or other, in a bizarre kind of way, Starmer sort of represents that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? That he seems to be completely ignoring the message that was sent to him last week, and to the entire government. Right, this wasn't just about Starmer. This was about everybody, as you said, is feeling less hopeful. We're feeling broke. We can see the price rises. We're all, everybody I know is struggling to some degree. Nobody's sort of swilling champagne and tripping off down the street. So everybody's feeling this, and it seems that Starmer still doesn't have a plan, at least not one that he's articulating to us. I mean, his speech, his second, third, fourth, whatever reset speech yesterday was just woeful. It was pathetic. And I just thought, well, if that's you fighting, if that's your fight back, mate, that's just rubbish.
Yeah, but just even in terms of, just pure political opportunity, that's another, occasion where, if he was going to set the country in a new direction, galvanise support for himself, inject some kind of hope into whatever his mission is, that's it. I mean, frankly, just down the toilet yesterday, and tomorrow's the same. We should be sitting here tonight, not talking about, Keir Starmer and how long he's got. We kind of seem to be, as somebody said today, beyond when he'll go or if he'll go to how he'll go. We should be talking about, what is he going to do in the Queen's speech tomorrow about the cost of living? What is he going to do, right, to be able to, inject some extra cash into defence, which everybody says we sorely need? How is he going to improve the NHS? What kind of
the King's speech is that's exactly, you're absolutely right, because it's a huge deal, because that does set out the agenda. That does show which direction this government is planning to go into. And again, I would have thought that would have to be rewritten several times before the King, because he's got to come up with something new. Keir Starmer has got to come up with something new. He's already announced the steel deal, which we knew about anyway. That was supposed to be saved for the King's speech. That's now, Keir Starmer's already talked about that at this pathetic reset speech that he did the other day. And this is going to embarrass the King as well, surely.
And but just at a time where, we've been listening to all of the stuff in the past few weeks telling us that because of the war in Iran, that for the next 8 months things are going to be worse, that interest rates are going to rise. This is the prime opportunity tomorrow to have some kind of reset and stuff. And what we're talking about what's going to happen in the showdown between Wes Streeton and Keir Starmer when they meet in Number 10 tomorrow. And, you have raised that. It's pretty, I can't remember a time where appears tonight, according to some reports, that the palace is kind of saying that this is making it all a bit awkward for the king.
Of course it is.
I can't remember any kind of stories round about a king's or a queen's speech where anything like this would have arisen.
No, I mean, you can imagine the king's got to start and say, this is this is the next 18 months, when they don't even know who their leader is going to be in 18 days. I mean, he doesn't know who his prime minister is going to be.
I ventured
in 18 hours, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. The king doesn't know who he's talking about. It is embarrassing for the king. It's embarrassing for all of us. John, thank you. We're going to come back after the break, but that is the phone in at midnight. So let me know, what does Keir Starmer have to do? If he does manage to cling on, what does he have to do to win you back? Give me a call, 03444 99 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. No surprise as to what's on the front pages for tomorrow, John. More of the same. But the Sun going with crisis. What crisis? Starmer shrugs off mutiny. He does in this photograph look like he's been crying. I'm sure he hasn't, but it does look like it. But yes, the stubbornness of Keir Starmer.
Look, what can you say about this man? I mean, it's all tone deaf now as well, which is something that is worth saying. But he's in there in his bunker. Crisis. What crisis? I think was it Jim Callaghan all these years ago, who came off a plane and landed back in the country,
yes.
having, I think had been in the Caribbean when there was all sorts of stuff swirling around about an economic crisis in the country and a crisis for the Labour government. And I think these were the words that are issued. And it's just a bit of, this is a guy that he's not in control of events. Yeah,
but it is difficult to get rid of a Labour leader, isn't it, or a Labour Prime Minister? You look at, Theresa May hung on for a while, didn't she?
Yeah, but there's also this thing in the Labour Party in particular, which is the rules that they've set.
Yeah.
That they have to hit a threshold. I think it's of over 80 MPs have to sign up to one challenger to be able to challenge the incumbent.
Yeah, it's 20%.
If the incumbent decides not to go, and then there's obviously the unions are involved in terms of that nomination process, and constituency Labour parties, and the national executive of the Labour Party has made it more difficult to challenge a leader. hence, we've heard on a number of occasions from that succession of cabinet ministers who came out today from Downing Street to defend Keir Starmer. A couple of them said that, well, there isn't a leadership contest because those thresholds hadn't been triggered. Well, there he is. Crisis, what crisis?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, in 2021, it was 10%. And they increased it to 20%, which, as you're discussing the meeting with Wes Streeting, which is mentioned actually at the front page of the Times, Starmer and Streeting set for a number 10 showdown, that actually this could be the opposite to a showdown. This could be Wes Streeting really realising that he's not got the numbers and therefore trying to assuage Keir Starmer and get back in his good books.
I wonder whether Streeting's time has passed. We'll just need to see what transpires in that tomorrow. I was very interested today at the fourth minister who resigned today, a guy called Dr. Zubair Ahmed, who's a surgeon, actually. He still practices surgery at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. He's a transplant surgeon. He's a young guy. He came in 2024. He was previously, right away, the parliamentary private secretary to Wes Streeting and is now a junior health minister. And he's kind of like, for want of a better description, the representative on earth for Mr. Streeting. And it was interesting to me that he was one of the four ministers who did resign today from the government. And yet
Wes Streeting didn't.
Well, yeah, and again, let's see what transpires at this meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe
it could be that he's going in to say there's a challenge. He's maybe going in to say that he's leaving. It could, who knows? We'll need to wait and see. But, again, all day, the numbers have just been ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. But there's clearly a fight back on. We've seen, as I say, 113, I think it is, pro-Starmer signatures. And I noticed, in the last couple of hours that the four ministerial posts that were left vacant by those four ministers, Miata Fahnbulleh, Jess Phillips, Alex Davis-Jones and Zubair Ahmed, have now all been filled. It's as if, well, crisis, what crisis? We are carrying on as business as usual.
Yesterday, the aides that quit were replaced before I sat down to do this programme. So it's like okay, next. We're just gonna just keep moving through. Before we go to any other stories, I just want to go through the front pages and look at this main story with you. Daily Mail, paralysed by Labour chaos, and that is the concern, isn't it? I was saying that in my talk up, is that it's, this is, while they're all running around stabbing each other in the back or fighting like cats in a sack, nothing's getting done. The country isn't being served, and that is a major issue that, of course, plagued the Tories, but because nothing got done because there was so much going on in terms of insider trading, literally. And the markets are not happy either. They're not happy with the idea of an Andy Burnham PM, if that could come to pass, because they know that he would go big on borrowing and spending, and they're not happy with that.
I think that's right, and I think that's reflected in a number of papers. I mean, I must admit, this was a great Daily Mail front page. It's got it's got great cliches, 24 hours of madness, civil war in the Labour Party, market meltdown, the country paralysed. It's just very Daily Mail. But look, there is an element of truth in all of those things. I've been intrigued, listening to the Labour MPs out today who, are all to a person, no matter what side they are on, talking about, he either must stay or must go because of the effect on, the cost of living and interest rates and what's happening in the country, when in reality, and the Daily Mail's, as I say, partly right at this, nothing gets done when everybody's just fighting with each other behind closed doors.
I mean, literally nothing. This is, and at a time like this when we need people to be pushing through proper leadership, it's really selfish of all of them, actually, I think. The Guardian Starmer sees off threat for now as Streeting challenge fails to emerge. They're not backing him challenging Keir Starmer tomorrow, so it might be a bit of a damp squib meeting. So that's the Guardian. The Daily Star hasn't gone with him as a Klingon, which they did with Theresa May, I think, but they went with PM in a zombie parliament.
Yeah,
very good.
Playing the Walking Dead there, and zombie governments and everything. Yeah, I think I like the Daily Star today as well.
It's excellent, but it's not strictly true because he's still got this super majority, and even with those 81, if he counts them out, he can still get stuff through.
Yeah, look, I mean,
as long as they obey the whip, the rest of them, he can still cope.
I mean, there's 2 points I would make about this. You know, one, it always seems fantastic to any government at the end of an election when they've got a huge majority, when actually that's something that can become a real ball and chain for them. Because all of those people who are winning seats and perhaps seats that they thought were unlikely places have all then got different demands and different demands on the government, separate demands, sometimes conflicting demands. And, you know, again, when I listen to Labour MPs on television or radio, you know, I heard the guy last night I think on Newsnight, who was complaining that in terms of the reset speech, that Starmer seemed like too pro-European, right? So when your majority is so big, it just opens up kind of other divisions. And the other thing that I think is worth saying about the 87 MPs who have all signed up to remove Starmer is they themselves have got different demands. Some of them want him to go now because they've got their own favoured candidate, maybe West Streeton in this case. Others want him to set a time for him to go because they would rather he went maybe much later in the summer or in the autumn in order to give Andy Burnham the opportunity to get back. So it's kind of not as clear-cut as we might think. And there's another bunch of people, again, I was hearing about tonight, about some left-wing MPs. Now, you would have thought under normal circumstances, left-wing MPs would have liked to get rid of Starmer because, you know, they want to see the sort of thing that you were talking about there, more borrowing, higher taxes, etc., etc. But they at the moment don't want Starmer to go, some of them at least, right away, because they want to wait on the opportunity for Burnham to get in. Because at the moment he's, as we've said already, debarred from standing in the campaign.
I mean, it is, and it doesn't look like Angela Rayner's going to get any real support behind her, although she's preparing to announce that she would like that, but we already know that. So the Daily Express has gone with, for the good of your country, go now. For the good of the nation and the millions of people he represents, this Prime Minister must resign, although he thinks he's staying for the good of the country, doesn't he?
Well, again, you know, these are the contradictions in all of this story. I just like the Daily Mail, this is a very Daily Express headline.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm really enjoying the Metro headline, I have to say, John. Number 10 Downing Street.
Yeah, look, again...
That's very clever.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is where papers come into their own at this time.
Yeah.
You know, and all of these things have just been very, very good at attracting, really, your attention. And the Downing Street thing's also very good.
I've not heard that before either, so I'm quite pleased with that. Let's take a break there, and we'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it's Petrie with you, and with me, John Boothman, the political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. The Daily Telegraph, again going with that meeting tomorrow. I have a feeling this meeting is going to be a damp squib, and these newspapers may regret it, but Streeting to confront Starmer, Health Secretary, showdown at number 10 after PM dares rivals to oust him. I guess we'll find out in tomorrow morning, won't we?
Yeah, this will be one of these kind of, there will be either the sneaking in and out of back doors round about this meeting, or something that might, there will be something really dramatic happens. I was trying to remember earlier, I saw Michael Heseltine on the television, and I don't know if, I have in my head a recollection of Michael Heseltine striding down Downing Street away from the front door round about the time that Margaret Thatcher resigned, because Heseltine was clearly, at the heart of what happened round about that period and the Great Challenger and stuff. And I just wonder if we might see something dramatic round about, Streeting tomorrow, Streeting leaves Downing Street and leaves the government, or Streeting leaves Downing Street and triggers an election or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny today. He did a runner from the press today because he was in the cabinet meeting, and the cabinet meeting, apparently Keir Starmer banned any conversation about what was going on.
Now, when have you ever seen, right, West Streeting avoid the camera?
I know. I thought that this morning. Yeah.
No, I again, the early reports from the cabinet this morning, and before you saw that procession of cabinet members coming out to defend the Prime Minister, there was this sort of, this was the kind of tough and resilient Starmer, come and have a go if you think I'm hard enough kind of thing. But look, he's still there. He might be a bit punch drunk by the end of the day, but by the time we've got to the end of the day, I don't know, my kind of feeling at the moment, certainly from the reports I see, is that he's in a better place at the end of the evening this evening than he was at the beginning of the day this morning.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And with that momentum slowing down, it could just run out of steam. And like I said, there's a natural break in that tomorrow with the King's speech, because there's not going to be shenanigans. The Palace would have put a stop to that tomorrow, I wouldn't have thought. And so that gives him a nice, easing off for the day, and then they might not be able to pick it back up again.
See how it goes. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. The Mirror has gone with standoff as Rayner gets ready to run. If she'll get the numbers, I'm not sure. Her tax affairs still haven't been dealt with, so I think that would be a bit of a poison chalice, maybe.
I think the tax affairs thing's important. I mean, obviously, as the bit of dynamic that I don't quite get round about this is the kind of Rayner Burnham axis. Does Rayner become the candidate if Burnham's not going to make it, and there is a contest that triggered, if Streeting triggers a contest, Rayner will come in against Streeting, which means that Burnham won't get anywhere near it. If it goes later on, does Rayner defer to Burnham, or?
I think she would defer to Burnham, knowing that she's going to get a big job in his cabinet. I think that's always been the dream for those two, isn't it? That he's PM and she's deputy or chancellor.
Well, look, you only get one shot at this. I mean,
I agree. It's a risk.
It's the same. This is the risk that Streeting in particular has. In the immediate period that we're going into, there are so many people, right, in the past in round about any of these contests who, they become nearly people, and then if they don't make it, they're kind of yesterday's fish and chip wrappings.
Yeah, I agree.
And you never hear of them again.
Yeah, it's just that none of the candidates they've got is ideal, is it? I mean, you've got Wes Streeting, who seemed to be too much to the right. in the Labour government. You've then got Angela Rayner, who's left enough, but has got issues with her personal popularity, and I think the country's still not ready to forgive her for that. And then you've got Andy Burnham, who isn't even an MP, who may cut through on the doorsteps because we've all heard of him and he has that appeal, but he's not an MP, so he can't have the job. And likely Shabana Mahmood, who I don't think she's going to get the backing of 20% either. So none of them. Starmer's right, isn't he? There's no real challenge there.
Yeah, we shouldn't forget Miliband as well. Look, the other way of looking
I'm trying to forget Miliband.
Yeah, look, the other way of looking at it, is I would probably say Miliband, Rayner, Andy Burnham, are on the soft left side of the equation. They would be people who think we can relax the fiscal rules in a very difficult period. They would want to borrow more to invest in infrastructure, but they would also critically want to tax more. And again, you think to yourself, right, that might be more in tune with what Labour MPs want and where they are. What it would mean for the economy and what it would mean for interest rates and what it would mean, right, in a competition going forward when Labour are facing up to a challenge, mostly from Reform, who are big tax cutters.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, is that a battle or a fight that they're going to win? And then the other bit of it, looking at, I think anything I've ever seen about Angela Rayner is she's certainly much softer on things like immigration. And is that going to be something in the current, political circumstances that's going to win support for the Labour Party? Interesting to see.
And it does appear that any new reset, new reset, would be to pull the party more to the left.
Yeah, but because that's what Labour MPs are.
Yeah.
The Labour MPs are, fed up, right, not just with the lack of delivery and the lack of, well, really, I suppose, direction and competence almost of the Prime Minister. They want to see something much more robust in terms of a left-wing stance. They want to see more money in people's pockets through the government, particularly, poor people. They want to do something about child poverty. They're quite happy to be putting up taxes if that can raise money to increase investment in infrastructure. All of that sounds great and is all very well, but if it's going to mean, as we've seen already as a result of the crisis, that the amount of money that Britain pays in terms of long-term interest rates and stuff, then you're into a different ballgame.
Yeah,
it's another crisis.
Yeah, it really is. So that's most of the papers. So Streeting to confront Starmer. We've got the FT. Starmer throws down the gauntlet. The Independent. Starmer faces down cabinet and clings on. Put up or shut up. Starmer tells his cabinet rebels that's the I. And City AM is where do we go from here? Again, another good pun. Other news stories that are around on the front of the Times, John. It's a daily weight pill could keep millions disease-free. In fact, they're suggesting here that it could be the end of diabetes. There isn't going to be any type 2 diabetes, I have to say what that is, but any weight-related diabetes will be gone.
This is a name that we might hear, right, more of, if I can pronounce this correctly, Orforglipron seems to be the name of the tablet referred to.
I'm going to try that as well. I love that. Why don't they make it easy?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Orforglipron. Orforglipron.
Right. The interesting thing about this is it's half the price of fat jabs, it says. Right. Cuts heart disease and, will cut a swathe through type 2 diabetes. A daily weight loss pill for life. Now, some people might look at that and say, do we really want to be putting people on medicines like this for life? But look, lots of people are on medicines for all sorts of things for life. So I think this is a very, very good story. But, the cost thing's interesting. It replaces the jabs, the Manjaro jabs and the Wegovy jabs, and I'll still never learn how to pronounce it.
No, I'm never going to. We're going to call it Smith. I don't know why.
Like that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with this that people are on diabetes medicines, they're on statins, they're on all sorts of drugs every day, and so if all of those drugs could be replaced with one, which is a weight control drug, which keeps people away from having to have statins and away from having to have, certain other medicines, then it sounds too good to be true. It says cutting the risk of 200 complications, including heart disease and type 2 diabetes. And this is Eli Lilly, that's made the Manjaro jab, have now come up with this ridiculous name for a daily tablet. So I mean, and it could be the answer to everything. And even though it's still a cost to the NHS, it'll be cheaper than treating people with diabetes too.
It'll become the world's best known anagram.
Yeah. I'm never going to be able to say it. You're absolutely. Why do they do that? It's so ridiculous. There's another story here on the front of the Telegraph. Roy Chubby Brown cancelled by... I didn't even know Roy Chubby Brown was still going. Yeah, he's 81 years old.
I was going to say, he's a so-called comedian, yeah?
Yeah, 81 years old. A theatre has cancelled the show by the comedian Roy Chubby Brown because he wants to promote inclusion, well-being and community cohesion. What? That's all right, though, isn't it?
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think his reputation, as I understand it, that would not be how I would describe what I thought his act was in the past.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me. I was convinced they're going to say because, the theatre's too woke and he's too, off the charts. But it's saying here that he wants to promote inclusion, well-being and community cohesion. The 81-year-old comic, who's known for his offensive comedy and eccentric costumes, was due to perform at Exmouth Pavilion in Devon as part of his No Offence Meant tour, but he announced that he's been informed that the show no longer aligns with the theatre's long-term strategic direction. None of that makes sense to me, no. Unless they're tongue-in-cheek about him wanting to promote inclusion. And
maybe it's a theatre that only puts on offensive shows.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows about that? Extraordinary. But the fact that he's still working at 81 is also quite something. I tell you, he's never been my type of comedy, but good on him. Quick break, John, then we'll come back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me the wonderful John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Of course, this week, John, is Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival, and Demi Moore has probably made herself a little bit unpopular with what she said. It's on the front of the Telegraph. She said, Demi Moore said yesterday, or Demi Moore, said yesterday that AI was here to stay in the film world, and suggested that using the emerging technology in filmmaking could make it beautiful. And she's come up with a new word there. I've never heard this before. I think the reality is to resist. I always feel that againstness breeds againstness. I don't know what that kind of means, but she's basically saying that we can't fight it, so we might as well work with it. But a lot of people in Hollywood very unhappy about the rise of AI, and AI actors particularly.
Yeah, a lot of AI, a lot of actresses and actors find this very, very difficult. What's the need for actors and actresses when you can do it all by AI? And there's already, a whole load of, I think, court cases and certainly actions around about people's voices being stolen. People listening to films and hearing their voices that have been, taken, sampled from somewhere else and then put through, AI, and all of a sudden they're a soundtrack to a film. So I think, she'll have caused a lot of angst and bother for, people in that industry whose againstness will become even more severe. Yes, even more againstness.
There'll be a lot of againstness for her, I would imagine. What a word. I don't even know where that could come from. Let's have a look at a couple of your stories, John. The Edinburgh Airport. Goodness me. Tell me about this.
Well, look, this is something that I think will infuriate a lot of people. It's really interesting how, you can travel around the world really, really cheaply. My son a couple of weeks ago went to, him and his pals wanted a weekend. They went onto the internet and they literally just Googled what's the cheapest flight from Edinburgh and got for, 46 quid return to Bratislava. Right, leaving in the middle of the night and coming back kind of 3 days later. However, I had to drive up to the airport, and in the 10-minute drop-off point, Edinburgh Airport are putting the charges up to £8.50, right? So the article that I'm talking about is in the Times in Scotland today. £8.50 for 10 minutes just brings it up to the same as people get charged in Bradford and Leeds, Bradford and Bristol airports. In Manchester, it's a £5 for 5 minutes. In Newcastle, it's £6 for 10 minutes. And in Gatwick and Stansted, it's £10 for 10 minutes. Literally just to go either to drop somebody off with their bags and drive out the other end or to pick somebody up.
And this is disgusting. It's a newish thing as well, isn't it? They've just went, we could make a bit of money here.
Sure.
And they are absolutely raking it in, because if you're there, if the Glasgow and Aberdeen is £7 for 15 minutes, but a further £1 for every minute.
Yeah, look, the Edinburgh Airport is justifying this on the basis that they've had a huge hike in their non-domestic rates. I think they're saying that their business rates bill has risen to £8 million. An £8 million annual increase. Wow. That's a 142% rise. Which again, all of this stuff round about business rates is a huge problem, certainly in Scotland for everybody. But these charges are just beyond the pale.
It is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the cab companies must be happy, because almost at some point you might as well get a taxi.
Well, the great irony in Edinburgh is that from the centre of the town you can get I mean, Edinburgh's got a fantastic bus service, right? You can get a bus for £6.
Yeah.
And here you're being charged £8.50, right, to stop at the airport for 10 minutes.
Just to drop somebody off. Yeah, that is. I mean, it is just raking it in, isn't it, for the sake of it. Father Ted, I mentioned this a little earlier. We were talking about Eurovision, how political it's become. But this is one of the greatest episodes, I think, of Father Ted, where they do a song for Europe, and the costumes are great. I mean, everything about Father Ted is brilliant. But this is going to be aired in Ireland on Saturday night instead of the Eurovision Song Contest.
Look, you know, the whole of the Irish state, the Irish government have been very, very big, right, on what's happened in Gaza. And RTE, the national broadcaster, as you say, is going to broadcast that famous episode. I can remember it, where Father Ted and Dougal perform their song, My Lovely Horse.
Yeah.
That's it, and it gets null point in the Eurovision Song Contest. But look, there's a serious point here, and you know they are not the only country who are boycotting the Eurovision Song Contest. Spain, Slovenia, the Netherlands, and Iceland as well. Which, you know, I think this has been coming. Look, I've never understood, and you know, leaving aside if it's possible to say that about, you know, what's happening in the Middle East, I've never understood why Australia and Israel are in the Eurovision Song Contest anyway.
No, and they're also launching a Eurovision Asia. Yeah. And they're calling it Eurovision Asia instead of Asia Vision, which is silly. But yeah. Cool. I've never Australia. I don't. Nothing against Australia, but the last time I looked, they're quite a long way.
Absolutely
from Europe. But I mean, look, if you're going to replace the Eurovision Song Contest, replace it with Father Ted every day of the week, right? I mean, it's just an absolute genius.
Seeing your point about it being political, right? I've always thought, certainly, I don't know, maybe for the last more than a decade, it's been pretty political in terms of with the way that you watch different blocs voting for each other. We went through a period, I think, round about Brexit where nobody voted for us for anything in Eurovision, and I've seen that kind of behaviour before.
Well, to the positive as well, we saw Ukraine win a landslide, didn't we, in 2016, and that was clearly political. The young people, the young men that were in there, and I thought they were quite good actually as well. But they had come off the front lines, I think, and we're going back to the front lines. So a deserving win on many levels. But that again was political. It'd be interesting to see what kind of points Israel gets this time, because they were accused of some mucking around with the numbers last time, because they got very high numbers, and they were saying that because their own government were involved in drumming up votes. So that has been changed. The rules have been changed on that. So it'd be interesting to see how political that voting does get. But I think I'd rather watch Father Ted.
Yes, indeed.
And My Lovely Horse.
I'll be watching my hair that night, I think.
Yeah. Plaid Cymru has a new leader. Are you going to add that a name? I wouldn't even know where to start. It's like that drug for me.
Well, Wales has got a new leader, right, who's the Plaid Cymru leader. And that's what's interesting about this is it's the first time in the Welsh Assembly, the Senedd we call it now, where in 27 years there's been anybody other than a Labour leader. He's a guy called Rhun ap Iorwerth.
Very good.
He used to work for the BBC, I know him. And he's the First Minister of Wales for the first time. They say they're going to run in a minority government. And you'll hear more of this, and this is one of the reasons I put it down as this story. We're already hearing more of this. That's now for the first time ever in the history of devolution and in the United Kingdom that Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have had a nationalist politician as First Minister. Already Michelle O'Neill, the Sinn Féin First Minister in Northern Ireland, has been talking to this guy in Wales and to John Swinney in Scotland. And what they want to do is, move the constitutional question in each of their countries up the agenda. But there's other practical things that they want to do together. In terms of things like child poverty, in terms of things like energy, that they can cooperate either bilaterally, trilaterally, or coming together and lobbying the UK government about. So it's yet another dimension, an interesting challenge for the UK government going forward.
But wasn't Swinney talking the other day about trying to persuade Wales and Ireland to go in Northern Ireland to go for independence as well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that's the policies that each of these individual parties hold. On the one hand, as John Swinney says, it'll be up to these countries to go their own roads at their own speeds in this thing. But on the other hand, they want to use this kind of cooperation to try and persuade the UK government to speed up any kind of talks about the Constitution and to move it up the agenda.
Yeah, I just can feel another application for referendums.
It's already. There's a story tonight that the SNP are claiming that Starmer has said tonight in a phone call to John Swinney that he's happy to meet him to discuss independence. I have to say, I spoke to a Scottish Labour politician just before we came on air who was apoplectic.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. And also, we're sick and tired of never-endums. John Boothman, thank you very much.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. It's good to have your company this morning. And of course, we're talking about Keir Starmer because why wouldn't we? I mean, my goodness me. The hide of a rhino, that guy, clinging on to his position in power. He is making it very clear he will not go quietly into that good night, isn't he? It'll be a struggle now. And even though some senior cabinet ministers were saying, look, you need to set a timetable out. Let's have a smooth transition. Let's make sure it's nice and friendly. I don't think that that's what it looks like now. So we've had 4 cabinet resignations. We've had over 80 members saying, MPs saying it's time to go. But we've also had over 100 telling him to stay, or at least offering support to him. And there was a lot of support today after the cabinet meeting that was held, where when asked, they all said, well, it's just business as usual. Look, the problem is it isn't business as usual. And they can all talk about it as much as they like, but you and I know we've been on this rodeo before, right? This is not our first. We've seen this before. And we know that a lame duck leader is just not acceptable, particularly at the moment in this country. Look, we're in a right old mess in this country for 100 different reasons, right? We're broke, we're overtaxed, we're underpaid, there's a cost of living crisis, there's a fuel crisis which is looming bigger and bigger as the days go by. There's a problem now with a food crisis across the world. There's going to be mass starvation events happening across the world. We're going to have a shortage of food here. There's all sorts of this is major issue for us now, right? It is big. It's a big, big problem. And the last thing we need is a government that is incapable of doing anything because they're too busy passing each other little notes and joining WhatsApp groups about who they're going to back and who they're not going to back, and should there be a leadership contest, shouldn't there be a leadership contest, when should he go, should he not go, and all of that shenanigans. I can see nothing getting done at all for until, well, forever now, but certainly all the way through the summer. You might as well forget it. So this is the cost of this. These people in Westminster who constantly serving themselves forget that when they're playing these stupid little games in Westminster, that it's the rest of the country that pays the price. We all suffer. They're getting their big fat salaries, they're getting their big fat expenses. That doesn't change. Nothing goes on for them. No change at all. We pay for their second homes. We pay, all of this stuff. They don't. It's not going to affect them at all. For the rest of us, there's going to be issues. Big, big issues if there isn't already. So, first of all, we're in a mess. Second of all, the government's in a mess. Third of all, opposition isn't exactly being brilliant either at the moment. And we've got this whole country broken and shattered into different pieces. So Keir Starmer refusing to go, is that a strength or is that stubbornness? Is that the right thing to do right now, given everything I've just said, that we need that, if I can use Keir Starmer's own words, stability? We need his stability right now, and that he should stay. I mean, I know we talked about this yesterday, but I want to know, considering it looks like he genuinely could scrape through and remain leader for a while, what does he have to do to win you back? Because, I mean, he is utterly ignoring the message that was sent to him last week. And so is the Labour government, by the way. Completely ignoring the message that election sent to government last week, that you voted in. So what could he do? Is there anything he could do to win you back? And is there anything that the government could do to win you back? We've got 3 more years of this, and anybody hoping for an early election, just put that away. It's not going to happen. They are not going to vote for their own sacking, their own demise, because they know full well that if it went to a general election, they're going to stretch this out to as long as possible, because they know that they would lose. So, can they do anything to win you back? And what do you make of this utter disregard, really, for your message that was sent last week to both Starmer and the party and the government? They're all in it together, as far as I'm concerned. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do, of course, call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Let's go straight to the calls now. And Francis is here in London. Good morning, Francis.
Good morning. I will start off by saying food insecurity, fuel insecurity, all of this has been fueled. And a lot of the voters, you see, what I find very mind-boggling is it's very easy for us to point fingers at the Labour Party or Mr. Starmer. But what people have to remember is we have a man in the White House who has basically put the world in a situation whereby every leader in every country in the Western world has been held hostage by that man in the White House.
Yeah.
And time again, a lot of voters, especially in this country, they refuse to see it. They bury their heads in the sand, and they would say, yes, in the last 2 years, our standard of living has been basically it's in the doldrums. We are not seeing any improvement in our lifestyle. The cost of living is this. Whose fault is it? That man in the White House has created an avalanche of a mess.
Listen, I agree. I definitely think that you can see so many issues that have arisen from Donald Trump. We've got the tariffs to start with. We've got the Strait of Hormuz, which is the biggest catastrophe for the Western world. And that does include China, because the poorer we are, we're not buying stuff from China, right? So their economy is suffering as well. And the American economy is suffering. The whole world's economies are suffering because Donald Trump was persuaded that this would be a quick in and out war.
And the elephant in the room is time and time again, we've allowed Netanyahu to drag Western countries into an unwinnable war in the Middle East. A lot of defense analysts warned America that going to war with Iran will be catastrophic for the world economy.
Yeah.
And they ignored it.
Well, he was told, wasn't he, by Netanyahu that wouldn't happen, that it would be over before they could close the Strait of Hormuz. And the weapons of mass destruction, is what he used in Iraq. Netanyahu said that there were weapons of mass destruction there.
Thank you. And time again, and we've been here before, and I've been saying to the public, look, if you remove Starmer, I cannot believe that anyone thinks that having Farage in number 10 is going to make their life any better. What they've got to understand is the world is interconnected. And when America has a leader, an incompetent, and a leader who doesn't really take into consideration his actions and the effect it has on the world as a whole, we are all in a doom. And so I really do hope that my fellow British people will be patient. Look, you look at the rest of Europe. A lot of them are not very happy with a lot of their leaders. But patience is a virtue, and I'm really sorry to say this. The British public have become a nation of whingers. I'm British myself, and sometimes I think to myself, since Brexit, how many prime ministers have we had?
Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous, and we look ridiculous on the world stage, and I think that it is so difficult at the moment because I genuinely am no big fan of Keir Starmer, but
me too.
I tend to think that it is better for him to stay right now than it is for this mess that is being created by this chaos that's going on in Parliament, because we are facing a global crisis, and like it or not, he is respected on the world stage.
Exactly.
Much more than he is in the UK. If he was able to be half the man in the UK as he was overseas, we wouldn't have never got into this problem in the first place. But he is respected on the world stage, and that's what we need right now. And as much as I think he's appalling at politics and dreadful for the country, he is good on the world stage, and that's that's my personal feeling about this.
I totally agree with you. And the thing is, at this moment, look, people have to remember the war with Iran is going to, I mean, any minute now, it's going to light up again. People have to remember.
Yeah.
Exactly. Unfortunately, Donald Trump, this whole peace deal is falling apart. And I'm very worried that if we were to put someone, people say, and debate them, look, let's put it this way. Keir Starmer, no matter what you say, he knows how to deal with Mr. Trump. And we need a leader who can deal with Trump and his shenanigans. Because, look, I cannot think of anyone at this present moment who can do. And besides that, we have, this whole Hunter virus thing, which, people are not talking about it, but we need to give it time to see that it's not going to spread. So we've got so much happening in our world. I really plead with my fellow British public. I know this man is not really what we want, but we need to bite the bullet and say, look, let's give him another 6 months, or let's wait for someone competent to be selected or to be voted in, because I'm really worried that pushing this man out is going to cause a lot of chaos, and the last thing we need is chaos in our world.
Yeah, Francis, I'm with you on that completely, and I do think that look, the chaos, the sort of inactivity and lack of passion and lack of anything from Keir Starmer, it is slightly preferable to the chaos that can ensue if the wrong person gets in as Prime Minister right at this particular point in our history.
Absolutely. I'm very, very worried. I mean, because I hate to say this, but the worst is yet to come. Food insecurity, fuel prices is likely to hit 150 plus, I mean, the oil prices, and we have an unpredictable man in the White House. Only God knows what his next move is.
Yeah, well, I don't think he knows. And we have this coming winter is going to be very, very difficult indeed for people in this country. And Keir Starmer does have an opportunity right now to actually listen to the public, and that is something that he has not done. He has been utterly tone deaf. He's been in a bubble of people telling him what he wants to hear rather than what is really going on in the country. He has an opportunity to turn this around if he listens.
Does he though? I mean, he looks to me to be a very, from what I don't know the man, but for me, with that whole Mandelson thing and how he threw all long-serving civil servants under the bus, that really made me look at him with a side eye, I have to admit. I thought, this man is not a very nice person.
No, he's ruthless, isn't he? When it comes to protecting himself, he's ruthless.
Exactly. He's very ruthless and a very cold fish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, he didn't get to be QC by not being a cold fish, right?
He's heartless because these are long-serving civil servants, people who really had his back.
Yeah.
And the way he dispatched them, just got rid of them in the most heartless manner, I thought, this man is not a very good person. Yeah. I'm no fan of him. I can assure the British public, I'm not a big fan of Keir Starmer at all. Unfortunately, at this present time, he's the only thing we've got until something better comes along. I'm sorry.
Francis, I would high five you if I was with you. I think that's absolutely the truth of it. That look, he is appalling, but the chaos that will ensue with putting the wrong person in at these global tensions, I just think is worse by degrees, and perhaps even if it's bad stability, we need that stability as it is. Francis, brilliant call, brilliant. Thank you for that. Like that very much. Right, I'm going to take a very quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talk Back with Petrie, and we are talking about Keir Starmer and the situation that we're in at the moment. And like Francis, I'm very much at the moment sort of thinking, look, I don't support Keir Starmer. I haven't since day one. I said he wouldn't last his premiership. I think he's proven to be weak. I think he's proven to completely miss what's going on in the country. I mean, I don't know how it's possible to do that. He's also completely missed the message that you sent him last week in the local elections, which couldn't have been any clearer about him and the Labour government. Really, it couldn't have been any clearer. So he's completely out of touch, and he's running this country really badly. But excuse me, given what's happening in the world at the moment, given the crisis that is just around the corner for us with fuel and food and all of those things, the economy, interest rates, all of that, are we better with the devil we know than the devil we don't know? I mean, I know it's Sophie's choice, I know it's all of those things, but do you think that just switching Keir Starmer out will make the next 3 years go any more smoothly or any more to our advantage? Or do you just see that it will be chaos? There'll be imagine that there is going to be a leadership contest. That takes a long time, right? It just goes on and on and on. If we're waiting for Andy Burnham, there's no guarantee of that. That will go on and on and on. Meantime, nothing will happen in government. Nothing will change. Nothing will get done. No policy decisions will be made. Nothing will occur because they'll all be running around looking after themselves and their own interests, right? We know that. We've seen it before. It would be more chaos, surely, than if he stays. And look, it's not a good choice, right? This is not a good choice. But do we want the Labour Party want a more left Labour? Andy Burnham has already scared the horses in terms of the stock market and the bond market. The idea of Andy Burnham, because he'll want to borrow more, spend more, tax more, all of those things, right? So that's the left of the party. Then you've got Angela Rayner, who's also very left of the party, who we know the kind of things that she would want to do as Prime Minister. And then you've got Wes Streeting, who probably won't get enough backing because he's more to the right of the party. Will he be able to turn things around? I don't think so, and I'm not sure he'd get the numbers that he would need anyway. So I'm just looking at this pragmatically rather than wishful thinking. Is getting rid of Keir Starmer really going to fundamentally make this country any better? Or is he just such a loser that we just can't have him there? This is you tell me. 0344 499 1000. Sheldon, good morning.
Good morning, Petrie.
How are you this morning? All right.
I'm okay, my darling. How are you?
Good, very well. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. Right, my point. By the way, your previous caller was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Francis, he's good, yeah.
Yeah, Francis was great. He was great on the what's going on in the world and great with the challenges that we have in this country. And Starmer, I think he had it smack on. But we'll forget the personality of Starmer at the moment. I'm more interested in what's going to happen in our Parliament this year. Despite the problems we have with the leadership problem at the moment, I don't think that it wouldn't really matter who ended up as leader at the moment. The whole debacle is going to cost us, as the British public, a lot of heartache this year. Because by the time we finish with this business, then we're going into the summer recess.
Yeah.
And then we are going to come out of the summer recess into the conference season.
Yep.
Then we're going to come out of the conference, and by the time they all come back home on the £100,000 a year, it will be the Christmas recess. And it doesn't matter what they say in the Queen's speech tomorrow, the King's speech tomorrow, my apologies. None of those policies are going to be able to be implemented this year at all.
No, you're absolutely right, because they have to go, many of them will have to go in front of government and be debated and go to the House, to the Lords and all of that. And nothing is going to happen. Nothing will happen. But even less will happen if there's a leadership contest.
Exactly. This has made things even worse. And the problem we have at the moment is we have a set of people who are public servants who have forgotten who the public are. They are not working for us. They are working for themselves. I have never been so disappointed and disorientated in my life. I've been political from the time I was very young. I'm finding it very difficult to keep my temper with Westminster altogether.
Yeah.
Because there are too many entitled PPs in there.
Yeah.
Who are completely inexperienced. And then we have another group of people who are factionalized, who don't care about us at all. And this applies to all the parties, because we've had 20 years of impotence.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened for the past 20 years except Brexit.
You're absolutely right. There's been no fundamentally big changes, has there? Nothing that's made us feel any better. And look, the Labour Party can't even decide what it is, right? That's fractured. It can't decide if it's going to go left, right, or central, like Blair, right? They just don't know who they are, and this is the problem they've got at the moment, of trying to get the backing of 81 of them to support one candidate in a challenge, because they're too fractured. Like I was saying, Andy Burnham's too right of the party, so he's not going to get enough votes. Angela Rayner's got these problems, and she's a bit too lefty, and blah blah blah. And then they're all none of them, because the party's so broken and divided as to where it should be politically. It's all over the place, which is what we're witnessing when we see things not happening.
This appears to me to be, it's obviously the death of the two-party system. That's number one.
Yeah.
We do have this problem going on, and it's unusual for our country because we are so used to being one-sided. I don't think that was a very good idea forever and ever, amen, of course, because things change. However, we have a lot of popularists who are dangerous people as well. And they're opportunists as well as popularists. And I don't like this idea of trying to make sure that nothing ever gets done. That's a huge worry for me.
It is, and that's what always worries me when we look at this now, this multi-party state that we're in since last week. I think it's undeniable now that we will just have coalitions, and coalitions are an incredible failure. You just look across Europe where there are many, many coalitions, and things just don't get done. They just don't happen.
But the only time a coalition ever works is at the time of war.
Yeah,
that's a serious crisis.
But that's a multi-party thing pulling together for one topic. But in coalition governments, they just don't get anything done. Look at the Lib Dems and the Tories; nothing got done.
No, every time it's attempted, nothing happens at all.
Yeah.
And one of my problems at the moment within the party as well is we have a situation where we have a load of inexperience because they're all newcomers. They do not understand what has happened in the past. They're not learning from the past. They haven't been involved in the debacles of the Tory party and other parties in the past, which are quite recent. But they're only 40 years of age. So how would they know?
I mean, that's why I think that bringing in Gordon Brown is probably a good idea, because he's been around the block a few times, and he's a decent human being, Brown.
Yes,
He's made a lot of mistakes politically, and I'm not gonna say that he's great. But the one thing that he did, which I'm so grateful for at the moment, is removing interest rate control from government and handing it to the Bank of England, because we'd be at 16% now. You know, I mean we'd be back up to where we were in the 80s and 90s. So that is.
I lost my home over that.
A lot of people did. It was a disaster. Yeah. It was people can't understand. You know, the guys with mortgages now. You say, well, you know, imagine your mortgage rate being 16%.
I tried to explain to my daughter. She has a mortgage at 2.5.
Yeah.
Right? And she thinks that she's worried sick is going to go up to 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, you have no idea, darling. When you were born, my mortgage started at 10 and went up to 15.
Yeah. And that was because it was the government controlling the levers of interest rates and not the bank. And that was the best thing that Gordon Brown ever did. And look, he has been around a lot. We lost a lot of big beasts, didn't we? We lost thousands of years of parliamentary experience.
Exactly. And this applies to the Lords as well, because I know that a lot of people have problems with the inherited Lords. But on the other hand, some of these people who were there purely on that basis have come from families who have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And it's not because they made a couple of bob last week.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We cut away experience at our peril, because it does count for something, right? A lot of people go, no, get rid of the old, bring in the new. And it's like, no. If you can't learn from history, you're in danger of repeating it, and that's the problem. Sheldon, lovely to talk to you. Send my love to Faye, wouldn't you? I hope all's well there. I just want to move on quickly and speak to Matt, who's in Cheshire. Hello, Matt. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Petrie. I was just calling about the replacements for Starmer.
Yeah.
And I'm in Greater Manchester. I'm next door to Angela Rayner's constituency.
Right.
Labour lost 18 out of 19 council seats in my borough.
Wow.
And including in Angela Rayner's constituency. And they also lost seats throughout Greater Manchester. So the idea that either Rayner or Burnham are likely to be popular replacements of Starmer is laughable. And I think Burnham is the next scalp on probably Reform's checklist.
Yeah, they'll be going certainly after the mayoralty. If he steps down to go for a seat like the Gordon and Denton by-election that we just saw, but that was won overwhelmingly by the Greens. There's nothing to say that Burnham would have won that, and that's what I've been saying for a couple of days now, is that it's a risk, because if he quits the mayoralty to stand, and there's an election therefore for the mayoralty, the Reform are going to be throwing everything they can at that. And then if he doesn't win the by-election, which has no guarantees, no safe seats anymore, I don't think, for Labour, do you?
No. Labour are dead in Greater Manchester and probably dead throughout the Northwest.
Really?
This has been coming for probably the last 30 years, starting with neglect of constituents via councils, the conceit and arrogance of Labour to focus on inane and insane, unwanted policies rather than just general things like street lamps, street cleaning, de-weeding streets.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you're saying this, because I do think that councils are overstepping their remit. That they're just there to clean the streets and put the lights on and sort the bins out. Well, who the hell do they think they are?
They're just wannabe MPs, aren't they? And
they're little fiefdoms, aren't they? They're little fiefdoms. That's what they've become.
those celebrities they think they are. They think they're like little versions of Westminster. And just concentrate on what you're meant to do. Keep the lights on, clean the streets, make everything ship-shape, make the town centre look presentable, and just stay out of the newspapers.
Yeah, and stay out of our lives.
That too, yeah.
I'm sick and tired of this overreach by governments and councils, and just go away. Just leave us alone. We're free people.
That is why people do want out with the old and in with the new, Petrie. It's not that they want to bin the experience. It's because we've had 30 years of posers, ad speeches, lack of common sense.
But who isn't going to be like that? They're all like that. They're all like that. Reform is like that.
Well, we don't know till we've
Farage has got to be the biggest poser in the country. I mean, they're all. I don't trust any. I mean, I'm not party political. You know, I can't bear any of them. But I don't see them being any less show pony, and self-serving than everybody else is.
No, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. I think they've just won. They've won 20 seats in the last year in my borough. And they've only had one councillor until last week. They've now got 20. So the entire...
Well, I hope that what they do is keep the lights on, clean the streets and sort the bins out. But the point is that they probably will also be thinking they're minor celebrities now.
Well, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, I mean, I try to do things in my community, for my community. I try to keep greens trimmed.
Oh, bless you.
I constantly barrack the council. They do things if you pester them, and because Labour are on the knees and Reform are brand new. They're all eager to please at the moment, so it's the best time to get things done, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. First couple of months of any of these new positions is the best time to get it. After that, they just want more biscuits and tea breaks.
But I think a lot of them, apparently Reform, having a social media base was part of their campaign strategy. If you were to run for Reform, it wasn't, can you get things done in your community? It's, are you active on social media? So what you're saying is...
Well, that's worrying.
It is worrying, yeah. It's like, you know...
God. Is this how we're running the country now, by how many followers you've got? Crikey.
Yeah, it's just crazy, Petrie.
Honestly, it is. I've never known a period of time like it. We can't rely on any of them, can we? We're on our own, basically.
At the end of the day, people where I am are absolute cock-a-hoot that Labour are out. We've had them for 47 years. They treated us like we were their subjects.
Oh, I can't bear that. They forget that they're public servants. They work for us. Not the other way around, but they all forget that, Matt. They all forget that. They think that we work for them because we have to pay them, but they actually work for us, and it's about time they all got back to that. I just hope that Reform does do what people expect them to do in those, and not just sit there trying to, you know, boost up their follower numbers.
I mean, I, for one, will be on them if they don't.
Good. Well, let me know, Matt. Keep in touch. Let me know if they're on it.
I might be running myself next year in my town.
Oh, good. Why not? At least you do stuff.
I've actually got people in my phone who work for the council, who work for road departments, cleaning departments, and I don't even go through the council switchboard to get things done.
You've got to run. You've got to run, Matt. Put yourself forward. I'll move up there and vote for you. I mean, I was born up there, so I am a Mancunian.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Whereabouts?
Yeah, well, actually, I was born in Stockport. But,
oh, my God. Right. So you're not that far. Whereabouts in Stockport?
Well, then I moved to Wythenshawe.
Yeah, I know Wythenshawe.
Yeah, I'm in Staley Bridge.
Oh, right.
See, we're practically neighbours. I'm, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a northerner. Right, I mean, I moved south very quickly when I was about 3 years old, but started off up north. So I'll back you, Matt. I'll back you for that. I've got to go back because I'm really late to the break, but it's been lovely talking to you. Really, really cool. Thank you for calling. Quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back with Petrie, and we've been discussing Keir Starmer and what's going on with the... Got some excellent calls this morning. Really, really impressed. Thank you. We're talking about what does he need to do to save himself. And Gary has sent this message saying Starmer can start to learn to read the room and realise that they are completely out of touch with reality. They are all in the Westminster bubble. Starmer lives in an isolated world of politicians, advisors and lobbyists who only talk to each other and lose touch with everyday realities. He's a leader who only hears opinions that align with their own and never face outside criticism. He is out of touch. Gary in Glasgow, absolutely right. I mean, completely right. I don't think he's got a clue what's going on. I just think he should listen to more phone-ins and then he'd learn a little bit more. Ernie said the only way Starmer could save himself is if he denounces all his planned policies, which actually we'll find out in the King's speech later on today, which only a small minority wants, and adopts everything that Reform is planning to do, which is to implement policies that the vast majority of the British people want, and that's from Ernie. The trouble is they're going to pull more to the left. That's what we're hearing. So, yeah. Let's go back to your calls now. Thank you, Ernie. Brian is in Whitley Bay. Brian, good morning.
Hi, Petrie. Good morning. You're gonna shout at me, Petrie. I didn't bother to go out and vote. I didn't do it. Sorry. I didn't go out. I only vote during the general elections, but for the council elections, I just didn't bother to go anywhere. But
I'll be honest with you. I very nearly didn't. Honestly, I was sat at home. It was Thursday. I was completely knackered from having worked and done the show. I just thought, I can't be bothered. I know it's all going to be Labour anyway. And then I thought, no, I've got to talk. I've got to walk the walk. So I did actually force myself down to the voting booth and vote, but it was very close that I didn't. So I do understand. And it's very difficult actually at the moment to feel any connection with what's going on in politics.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you one thing, and I'll be honest, everybody in my entire family, including aunties, uncles, grandparents, sisters, cousins, everyone went out there and voted for Reform. And I asked, I said, why did you vote for Reform? And they said because Labour councillors have been going that long in the North East to want some kind of change. And everybody in my entire family voted for reform. And I asked them, why? And they said, because of the immigration situation. But I thought, well, what other policies are reform going to do? What differences would they make?
Yeah, but I mean, local councils, as we were just discussing, they clean the streets, sort the bins out. They've got nothing to do with the immigration policies. That's what interested me. That's what interested me, because they're not MPs. And I think a lot of people thought that this was some kind of almost general election or MPs that they were, because this was councillors. This is people who literally discuss school budgets and social care budgets and the bins. You know, and a lot of people say, when I voted them because of immigration, you go, but the councils don't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, that did puzzle me. I mean, there are some hard-working Labour representatives, you know, in the North East who have been in council positions for quite a long time, and they lost their, you know, their seat. Well, you know,
they lost their position. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just felt, you know, they generally did work pretty hard. Some of them, you know, and it was a shame, but. You know, like the Labour Party, what I don't understand, like Wes Streeton was on TV a few months ago and he said he had no intention of going for the top job. And
well, that's when you know they're going for the top job, right?
Yeah, you know, there's no loyalty there.
Boris Johnson did it for years, didn't he? He said, I don't want to be Prime Minister. I absolutely don't want to be Prime Minister.
Yeah,
they all lie.
They go for it. I mean, I like the old school. I mean, I'm a big fan of David Blunker. I think he's a great guy. You know, he's the guy who's visually impaired.
Yeah. I know David. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's been on the radio a few times, and I like him. I've always think he's, you know, like from Labour old school. You know, I just, because I've noticed that Keir's brought in different people like
Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown and people like that to come and give him advice and stuff. But he needs to get rid of that Rachel Reeves. I think she's caused a lot of problems. I don't think she's out of it. She doesn't know what she's doing. I think she's out of her depth a little bit. And I think he needs a complete change, move people around and get different people in. I don't know why he didn't get someone like, I don't know, you know, someone who knows business, like Richard Branson and us. I know he won't do it, but I'm just thinking.
Yeah, we need jobs that suit the person, right? And Rachel Reeves, we know, was a little fragile with the truth on her CV or on her LinkedIn profile or wherever it was. And I agree. And I think that if Keir Starmer does survive the next few weeks, we will see some kind of reshuffle.
Yeah, I think it's bad news if we start looking for new leaders, because obviously, a lot of people are saying he's not doing a brilliant job at the moment. But I mean, he's there and he's been in the job for a little while, and I just think he, I don't know, just give the guy a bit of breathing space, see if he can turn things around, because a lot of the problems in the world, like other callers have said, have been caused by Donald bloody Trump. These tariffs and all that nonsense.
Yeah, and they genuinely have, and I think that also after COVID, it's taken us way longer than anybody else to recover from that because of inept governments.
Yeah.
But also,
sorry, I talk a bit. Why does he not bring other like? I know it sounds ridiculous saying this, but can they not bring other experienced people in from other parties to try and help us? I know, from other parties, can they not put somebody else in different positions, like the foreign secretary or whatever? Because Peter Mandelson's caused a lot of problems. I mean, get somebody from, I don't know, maybe somebody from the Tories who had experience, put them in the foreign,
they'd have to cross the floor though, wouldn't they? And who's going to jump from a sinking ship to a submarine? I mean, it's. Yeah. I don't know.
I just come out rubbish. I think. Don't have to be honest.
They're all rubbish. Honestly, I despair. I really do despair. I just feel that we are totally on our own, and yet when it comes to harm, they do more harm than good. Every policy hurts us.
To be honest with you, I think he should be left where he is to try, because we can't be bothered. We can't be mucking around changing leaders again. We've had 7 or 8 leaders when the Tories were in, changing leaders, and it just didn't do the country any good.
No, absolutely right. And look, it's the devil we know or the devil we don't know, right? And at the moment, it feels to me like he should stay, although I can't bear him, and I think he's bad for the country.
I'm not a big fan of him either, to be honest, but I just feel, is there. And I think, like you said before, just let them, see how it. Because I don't know, it's just everybody seems to be scrabbling for the top job. West Street and Andy Burnham and Rena. Everybody wants that top job, and you just think, what's best for the country, really? I don't know.
Yeah, and what would they actually achieve by? I think the Labour government is the problem, rather than just Keir Starmer. And I think just changing the leader is not going to change the trajectory of this country right now. Brian, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I've got to go to another break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And this is Talk Back with me, Petrie, here until the top of the hour. And we're discussing Keir Starmer. And I asked, what does he need to do to save himself or to win you back? Because it looks like he's not going to go anywhere. I think if he survives this week, then he's probably going to drag us through all of this for the next few months. JK has said the Prime Minister could save himself if he brought in proportional representation, compulsory voting, banned millionaire donations to political parties, had another Brexit referendum, take the party to the left, which I think he is planning, reduce inequality and the wealth gap, a cabinet reshuffle, bringing in left-wing cabinet ministers. That would save me. Said I would call him, but I don't think I'd get on air. No, probably a bit late now, I'm afraid. But anyway, always try, because we can stick you on the list and then we'll try and get back to you. But it'd be lovely to speak to you at some point. Andrew from Margate said the reason why our worst PM in history has run away from his cabinet minister is he's taken a trip to Norfolk to visit an owl sanctuary. Time for him to go. Has he really? Probably has. Paul is in Bolton. Paul, good morning to you. What do you think should happen next?
Hiya, Petrie. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. You all right?
Yeah, no. Well, to be honest, it's all stressing me, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk, including Brian, and then some of what you've just read out, and I do agree with a lot of it, to be honest, because I mean, I'm well known probably by now for being someone who's on the left that rings in to talk, but I'm not like, I'm more left-wing than Keir Starmer, I would say, definitely, but I just think we need some stability, and we can't just keep having this where we have a Prime Minister, don't like it, have another, don't like it, have another, don't like it. We've got to, maybe one of the rules that should be in place is that someone who becomes Prime Minister has to be in that post for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years before anyone can challenge them, for the leadership, because I just think we need that stability. And personally, I think when the history books look back on this, I don't think he'll be seen as one of the very worst prime ministers. I see him somewhere roughly around the same ability as someone like Theresa May and Gordon Brown, and both of them lasted about 3 years. And I probably think he should plod on till summer 2027. I don't think he should be there for the next general election.
No, I don't think there's much chance of him being there for the next general election. I would agree with you on that. But I do think that at the moment we're in the situation of the best of the worst, or the devil we know. Is that slightly better than going through a leadership contest, hanging around waiting for Burnham, all of those things? It's just going to mean that we're frozen, that nothing gets done, and we are in an impending crisis in this country. There's going to be food shortages and fuel shortages if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open soon.
And also, people go on about the legislation, but a lot of legislation, I can't say it because I've got a bit of lisp, but a lot of it's been past what they planned for the first period, and obviously tomorrow's the King's speech, which has probably saved Keir Starmer a little bit.
I think so.
That'll be a bit of a distraction, but obviously some of the things he promised to do, they have done, and whether you like them or not, people voted knowing that they were going to improve renters' rights, improve employment rights. We've talked about it before, Martin's Law. There's other things. But I do agree that proportional representation is the way forwards, and it will also save the Labour Party. But I don't agree with the person who said compulsory voting, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but if you've got Jack the Ripper on one ballot sheet and Cruella de Vil on the other, you're not going to vote for either, are you? So I don't think people should be forced into voting someone on a lesser of 2-3 evils basis. And I'm not saying they're evil, but I just
I do take your point. And many countries have turned to compulsory voting. I'm not sure that is the answer, but also what we can't have is another supermajority based on such a slim number of people. That power that was handed to Labour on 33% of the country's votes.
It happened. It's good. Even at the local elections, Reform have done well, but 75% of people still didn't vote for Reform.
You're right.
Again, it's like we need to change the system. Definitely, I think that should be a referendum. And to be honest, if I were Keir Starmer and he does get to plod on a bit longer, I'd bring some of these things in, because he's better going out and having tried to change the country with a couple of referendums.
Well, the Lib Dems tried to, didn't they? Nick Clegg wanted proportional representation. I think there was a vote on it. I seem to remember.
I don't know why Labour's so averse to it. I mean, you were saying about the three or four people to replace him. I mean, I won't want Shabana and Mahmood, but the other three, I think, could probably be more progressive. They're definitely younger, and this is going to sound terrible because I absolutely hate all prejudice and I hate ageism against older people. But when it comes to politics, I'm of the opinion that we need to go younger, because I just think it's so old and stuffy even now, in 2026. And I think our Parliament in particular is stuffy. I mean, when I looked at the Welsh people who've been elected for Plaid Cymru, they weren't necessarily all younger people, but their whole Parliament and the Scottish Parliament seem much more modern. I don't know if you agree with me. And less of